Hello everybody, welcome back to Red Tool House. On today's video, I'm enjoying this brisk, beautiful morning. Love these cool mornings. But I wanted to give you everyone an update on our pig situation. We did have a farrowing, we had two farrowings actually, and give you the updates, the highs and the lows, and the lessons learned from this. But first, I have down there a huge flock of Cornish cross chickens that are voraciously eating everything in sight. So I need to get them some water, I need to get them some feed. So, I don't know, come along if you will. I'll show you some of my rain catchment. So strangely enough, down in the greenhouse, I have my Cornish cross because we keep getting down to freezing temperatures at night, and I'm just not ready to put them out. They haven't fully feathered out, so I'm not ready to put them out in the chicken tractors. I actually have some heating in the greenhouse that they can take advantage of. And of course the thermal mass during the day, that heating up keeps them through the cool mornings and then even in the evenings. But we got to get some water. So I've got my swing around IBC tote to catch his rain off the workshop that I then swing back around, fill up the 55-gallon pickle barrel right there on the side of the brooder, and then I bucket out of that to get to the greenhouse. One of these days we'll get the greenhouse plumbed. But I'm going to let that fill up while I get some feed done. That's tough to do with one hand. And I tell you, if feed prices keep going up, I'm going to sell these chickens $100 a bird the way they're going. Come on, swine. Breakfast time. Little hard-boiled goodness there for some extra protein for the mama. Ooh, we need to add some more water. Get that running. What's going on, crew? Bag it. It's reverse. Bag it. Lighting's a little odd. All right, so this time was a tale of two farrowings. We had a good one, we had a not so good one. So let's do a recap. For those of you keeping score, 3 sows, 2 of which settled. Merida, our old mama here, she just won't settle. In fact, she's in heat right now, and the boar has tried to service her multiple times, and she just won't get a good stand. So she just won't let him engage, and if he does engage, then she just won't settle. So I think she's officially done, and we'll talk about her a little bit more here near the end. Got a piglet eating my boot. Okay, so that left us Noel, the black pig, and Pepper. Kelly named him. So Noel and Pepper. So I can't remember if I actually featured it in a video or not, but we built, I think I did, we built our typical farrowing pen. So we just threw up some of our panels here, some hog panels, some of our big heavy duty milled panels to create a small paddock, if you will. So step over here so you can see. Gives access behind the farrowing barn. There's the water trough. There's actually some green grass at that one point. So they've got an area there where they can get out, get some grass, rummage around in the dirt a little bit, but then still have access to the farrowing barn. If you recall last year, those of you that have followed the channel, jerks, rolling my bucket around. If you recall last year, both Noel and Pepper, which they are sisters, they came from the same litter, they both farrowed right here, side by side in the barn with no issues. Well, this year was a different story. So I got both of them locked up in here, left both of these doors open so they could choose, whoever went first could choose their farrowing spot. And I thought that was a pretty solid plan. They were in here for about 2 weeks. A week and a half actually. Got them used to it. Everything was cool. Feeding them here, water here, all that type of stuff. So we come home one evening and Pepper had farrowed here in the barn, and I'll discuss her litter details here in a second. And the back gate, I guess I'd left the back gate open because the gate wasn't damaged, the chain wasn't damaged, but we saw Noel standing on the other side of the valley in the house, at the house, not in the house, at the house. So I was a bit distraught because she was trying to nest. She was trying to nest actually over here behind the house on the hillside, which hillside farrowing for us does not work out at all. So it took me a couple hours to slowly lure her. She was not interested in feed because I have my feed up in front of the garage where I ferment it. So she actually helped herself to about 3 days worth of feed. So she got gutted on that. So I had no motivation to move her around, but it took several hours and actually got her all the way back across the valley, got her in here, brought her into this paddock or into this section of the farrowing barn and closed and locked the gate. Had her secured. Pepper was on this side with her piglets. Noel was here, ready to have a litter. So at that time, I actually thought, yeah, I've been pretty clever. I was able to get that pig all the way back across the valley and back in this barn, but she was not having it. You can tell she was stressed. And then I watched even Pepper charge her through these walls. I mean, she just hit these walls hard, trying to get her out of here. And I was like, man, this isn't good. But it was all the accommodations I had. I knew if she farrowed outside anywhere on these hillsides with these cold temperatures we've been having and all the rain, it wouldn't be a good farrowing. So against my better judgment, left them in here, came back the very next morning to check to see what kind of litter Noel would have had. And she did a full-blown Kool-Aid Man impersonation on that wall right there, which that wall is 2x10s and 2x8s, screwed and nailed with joist hangers, and then chained. My swinging gate that's well over 100 pounds chained here. So it was a 2-layer deep wall, and she blasted through it. She just tore it all to pieces. So I've since then put it back and even put additional reinforcements, additional screws, put some vertical boards in place, kind of hard screwed the swinging gate to it. So unfortunately, she goes all the way over, as far as she can get away from this farrowing barn and still stay in the electric fence. She goes all the way over and farrows right against a treetop of down pine and on a steep slope with a wallow right at the bottom. So what she farrowed like a Pez dispenser just rolled down the hill into the wallow and drowned or died of exposure. So let me give you details of the total count and what I had to do, of course. So Pepper behind me here, she farrowed first inside the barn, and she had 11 piglets hit the ground. And out of those 11, 9 survived. There were 2 that had crawled into the extreme corners of the farrowing barn and just appeared to have, they kind of had that splayed front leg syndrome there. Their front legs were just kind of pushed out. So they just kind of crawled, and no instinct there to stick around with mom. Didn't respond to her grunts, those type of things to bring her in. So those 2 passed away within the first 24 hours. So that left her 9 viable pigs from that farrowing. So of course the following 24 hours is when Noelle did her Kool-Aid Man impersonation and went over to the other spot of the pasture to farrow. She had 12 piglets hit the ground. And hit the ground is an understatement. They hit the ground hard because she had a very lousy nest. I think she was just too far into labor when she busted out, probably exhausted, and just didn't have an opportunity to make a good nest. And again, what I've learned in the last 8 years of farrowing on this property is if it ain't flat, they ain't gonna make it. So that's why we built the farrowing barn. That's why we want to lock them in. And that's why I thought this would be a solid farrowing, simply because they joint farrowed last year with 0 issues, actually even co-nursed and super solid. But now, man, she'll even charge the gate right now because they're eating on the other side. She'll charge the gate if they walk over. So anyway, whole nother story. So getting back to what happened with Noelle, by the time I got to her, the first thing in the morning at daybreak, she had farrowed, she had just finished. So she had 12 on the ground. Most had rolled down the hill, and that part of the pasture is just, it's huge spring, so it's just all water. And it was probably about 34 degrees Fahrenheit that morning. So the water, the exposure, all of that, most of them were gone. The ones that were still alive were just barely hanging on, so they had to be dispatched. But there were 5 that were still around her belly. And so she was super stressed. Those pigs were not going to make it. I just didn't see her nursing them very well just because of that circumstance. Just a matter of minutes and they would have rolled down over the hill as well. So in my experience with moving a nest that quickly, it just doesn't pan out well. So I scooped up those 5 piglets and brought them here to Pepper. But notice the 2 of the piglets had the splayed legs as well, and they were further away. They were really cold. So did what we could to warm them up, got them with Pepper. She actually accepted them and nursed, but as I expected, the 2 with the splayed legs just couldn't overcome that, and I had to put them down. So there were 3 out of her 12 that survived. And fortunately, that number worked out well because that's the number of viable teats that Pepper has. And she has been nursing those 12 now. It's been about 8 days now since initial farrowing. So I think the piglets are out of the woods as far as the initial farrowing, the initial shock of birth is going. And it looks like they're doing okay with nursing. So you can see they're decently sized pigs. They're putting on weight well. There are 2 that are smaller, but they seem to be getting enough teat time and being pretty agile. And we've just had, it's been such a cold spring that they're just not out running around as much. Of course, it is still morning, but they seem to be doing well. It looks like I've got 5 male and 7 female out of that group. So we'll be doing castration here in a couple days of those males. But so far, so good. Knock on wood. There's one of the, I don't know if you can tell by the darkness of the barn here, but it looks like the majority of them are solid black, and then the rest are brown with black stripes, kind of faint black stripes. And one of the brown ones, looks like she got a little bit of hoof damage from Pepper. Pepper may have stepped on a little bit, so just 2 tiny little cuts on the side that have already scabbed over and healed. So pretty good. So far, no crushing and no other big issues like that. So with that many piglets on, Pepper, of course, been keeping an eye on her daily, make sure she's doing well, check her teats, make sure they're all still producing, none of them have dried up. And of course, giving her a lot of extra rations so she gets her regular pig feed. And we have a surplus of eggs right now, so we hard boil those eggs And then I give her probably a dozen to 15 per day in her ration to help boost that protein. So of course she can get the energy and keep that weight on, since she has such a big litter load here with nursing. We'll keep an eye on her. We usually like to take our litter to 8 weeks before we wean, but we'll just see how that weight comes off, see if we can keep up with that, with being 12 full pigs. So really one of the biggest benefits in having dual farrowings or multiple farrowings at the same time is if you have an issue like this, then hopefully you've got an extra set of teats somewhere to move pigs around. So that was the pro of this, is that with both of them farrowing at the same time, because of the issues we had with Noelle, I could move the piglets over. But of course the con is, if they're not going to co-farrow, or my infrastructure's not set up for separate farrowing, which it's not, then you have an issue there. So it seems like every year there's another learning experience, one way or the other, the good, the bad. So we're going to obviously make adjustments to our farrowing setup, where the barn isn't the exclusive place, even though it's 2 separate paddocks. We're going to have other places elsewhere. Still going to have to be inside a shelter, still going to have to be on that flat ground to keep them from rolling over the hill. So you may wonder, hey, why didn't you just introduce Noelle back to the litter to see if she could co-nurse and once she's calmed down? And actually did that. So 2 days later, before she started drying up, moved her back in just to see if Pepper's attitude toward her would change and see if she could assimilate back and take care of some of the nursing responsibilities. Not at all. Extremely aggressive. Pepper was even to the detriment of her own piglets. She wasn't even watching out for them. She just kept hammering Noelle, wouldn't let her by her, rammed her in the side multiple times. So I said, nope, we're not doing this. We're getting us out of here. So that's why she's hanging out with Merida on the outside of the farrowing barn right now, because it's just too much aggression to go toward possibly losing pigs for that situation. So since I got 12 pigs and 12 viable teats, that's where we're staying. So right here is the spot where Noelle nested, underneath this pine top. And we are, I don't even know if you can see the side by side way back there. This is about as most extreme end of the pasture that you can be on, and of course still be in the electric. You may not be able to see the slope, but this breaks pretty hard, and there's a pretty good spring that comes out right here. So she nested just above that spring. And when I got up here first thing in the morning, the piglets were just laying down in the water. They had just fallen out of the nest and were down in the water. Some completely submerged in the water, some just laying in puddles. So definitely an unfortunate situation. Again, comes back to infrastructure. I don't know how stressed she would have been if she had to have farrowed inside that barn, if she would have crushed or not, but now we got to chalk it up to, even though they're 2 sows that have farrowed together without any problems from the same litter, I'm going to have to treat them as separate going forward if I keep both of them. All right, so let's go feed the boars, and I'll give you an update on what's going on there, because we've got a little bit of an issue we need to address. So I'm up here in the upper section of the boar pasture. Normally I feed them down in the valley where the stream is and where the corral is. But what happened during farrowing is, when all that was going on, I loaded up Mongo, who was hanging out with the ladies, put him in the trailer, brought him back down, put him in the corral so he could get back in with his brothers. Woo, man, you talk about the situation. So I could tell the tension was super high as soon as I backed him up. You know, they're doing their Harley Davidson sounds, all foaming at the mouth. And as soon as I let the gate open for him to go in, they squared off. And this went on for a while. In fact, it was Napoleon and the other boar, who's haven't named him yet, who just fought Mongo for a bit. And of course, you know, you ain't getting in there and stopping that. So it was just kind of sit back and see what happened. Well, the two of them tagged up on Mongo, and Mongo actually whipped them both. And so by the time the dust settled and the mud settled, I guess, Mongo was the alpha, and both the other pigs had some pretty good tusk damage to it. In fact, Mongo has two pretty big cuts on his hams where Napoleon would slide around behind him and whip him a couple times and put some pretty good cuts in him. And of course, try to hump him as well. So the current scenario is this. All 3 boars are still here in one pasture. I'm now feeding in 2 locations, so I come up here and feed so Napoleon and the other boar can come hang out because they're still kind of buddies. And then Mongo just goes wherever he wants. So if he comes up here to run them off, then they can go down and feed at the other spot. So we definitely need to do some offloading. So here's what I'm thinking. I've got, I think, 3 options that I identified that would maybe make the most sense, and would appreciate comments below, those of you all that have experience with boars, because this is just starting my 2nd year with a boar. Let me know what you think. So I know I don't want just one boar in one pasture by himself, because that's going to make him cranky and him want to be elsewhere. 2 boars were my original plan, that I could have 2 brothers, most likely get rid of Napoleon, have the 2 brothers hang out. But if there's going to be this constant aggression there, I'm not sure I want to do that. So the other option would be to take 2 boars away, just have 1 boar, maybe Mongo, because he and I get along the best, and maybe then take a barrow from this litter after, of course, it gets up to size and can be somewhat even remotely the same size as Mongo, and then integrate him. So we've got a barrow who will always be non-alpha hanging out with a boar. Not quite sure what that's going to do. Again, comment below if you think that's a bad idea, but the problem with that, of course, is I have to leave Mongo with somebody up until that barrow can get to that size, which is going to be at least a year away before he can hang with Mongo. Mongo's definitely a good sized boar now. Third option would be to bring Merida up here and just have Mongo and Merida in and get rid of the 2 boars. So he's got a companion. Merida's big enough to handle his advances. In fact, she's kind of like, back off, Jack. I don't want anything to do with you. So she kind of knocks him around a little bit. And she's probably got a couple more years of viable life left in her, so she could retire that way. Now, granted, she'll be aggravated all the time because Mongo will still try to breed her. But I don't think, it'd be my luck, I get her up here and then she starts throwing big litters over the hill. But that's an option. So 1 boar, Merida hanging out. Since Merida appears to be sterile or past her breeding age, then she can provide company, but she's big enough to take care of herself. Then I know a lot of you think, well, Troy, you've got a 4th option, which is just keep Mongo in with the sows and just let him keep breeding. Again, with our infrastructure, with the hillside, I want to know exactly when farrowing date's going to be. I really don't want 1 a year. I definitely don't want to overwinter pigs, big litters of pigs. So I just don't see that as an option for our operation here. And I've even discussed maybe I just get completely rid of the boars and go back to AI. AI gave me full control, but the expense and the timing and all those things that went along with that. So anyway, I would appreciate everybody's comments. Let me know what you think, those of you that had experience with boars in a situation like this. So there's Napoleon and the other boar just kicking it under this poplar top. And yes, they're both alive. so they're just hanging out. They're still buddies. But I haven't seen Mongo yet. I'm going to check and see if he's in the corral here. What's up, big man? Mr. Meanie? So he's definitely taking the spoils of being alpha. He's hanging out in the cozy loft here in the breeze, in the shade. So he's sporting dominance for certain. So the thing that cracks me up with Napoleon is that dude is the most randy pig I have ever met. He can smell Merida in heat right now, and that dude is crazy. He's humping everything. And I think that's what gets everybody else so fired up, is he won't leave them alone. But you can even tell with the pig who will remain nameless back here that swept back ears like that, he's picking up on Merida as well, especially since the breeze is coming up the valley now. So yeah, so it's, again, wasn't supposed to start off with 3 boars. Those of you familiar with the channel, that's 2 boars too many in what I ordered, but it is what it is. All right, well, I wanted to share an update with everybody. Again, some up, some down, such is life on the farm, right? All right, take care, everybody.